Hey everyone, today we'll be showcasing and giving away what will be, in a way, one of the rarest cars in Forza Horizon 5, my own Forza Edition car. Now, this concept began back when I learned about the gift drop system months before Horizon 5's release. This is, of course, a system that allows players to gift cars to other random players in the community. Right away, I knew I wanted to use it to build some unique cars and give them away to people. The idea sat in the back of my mind ever since the feature was announced, and as Horizon 5 neared launch, something else was becoming apparent. This channel was getting close to hitting 100,000 subscribers, a massive milestone I never thought I'd reach when I made my first drifting guide in Horizon 3 for a few people on Reddit over 5 years ago now. I wanted to do something special to celebrate this milestone, and that's where gift drops come in. So based on my car, I have chosen a Mark III Toyota Supra, built it as close as possible to the real life thing, and given it a custom Forza Edition themed gold and black livery. Before we talk about how I will be giving these cars away, let's run through some of the details of the build. Welcome to the Hoki Edition Mark III Toyota Supra. I'm going to be intentionally vague here in explaining some of the build details because there are a few secrets both in the build and in the livery that I can use as checks to verify whether or not the car is a genuine Hoki Edition Supra. So if anyone does try to replicate the car or you think you got a fake, I'll be able to check if it's real or not. This build and livery will only be available by obtaining the car itself, and more on that later. So let's get into the mods. The car sits at the top of B class, and actually is built quite faithfully to its real-life counterpart. The engine displacement matches the 1JZ, it's been swapped to a single turbo. Out of the 4 exhaust options, I've selected the one that sounds the most similar to my actual exhaust. We've lowered the car to the proper height, and I do have camber gauges to measure my real wheel camber, so that matches as well, along with toe and caster angles. I've matched the spring rates to my real-life coilovers exactly, I mean down to the decimal point. And damper adjustment is as close as I could approximate. It's measured differently in-game than on my actual suspension, but the feel is the same. For the wheels, currently the real car is sitting on MB Battles, a wheel I like, but I've been in the market for some super advans, and you can see those represented on the in-game car. I want this car in-game to match the real car now and in the future as well. The tire specs match up as well though, along with track width being eyeballed but pretty dang accurate to the real thing. I've looked up the gearing ratios of my R154 transmission and matched those to the in-game tune as well. Even the tire pressure matches what I usually run. This is a faithful build. Now, we did make some adjustments to fit neatly into the top of B class, but don't worry, it does not take away from the accuracy of the car. There are a lot of upgrades in Forza that just kind of have rough approximation to the real-world counterpart. For example, I cut and welded my own intake setup, and who can say whether or not that's a street or sport or race upgrade. Same goes for my fuel injectors or exhaust. So when it came to situations like this, I focused on the end goal of getting the power and other specs to match as close as possible, while also thinking about trying to fit the car into the top of a class so it could at least be usable online. And on that topic, it's actually a pretty solid B-class build. I've been setting top 1000 rivals times with it on a good handful of courses. Granted, it's not the best, but I still find it to be a pretty fun car that's at least worthy of being taken online if you aren't super concerned with the meta. We could have kind of rounded up a lot of categories instead of rounding down and still remained pretty faithful to the real car at the top of A class instead of B, but it just wasn't as fun to drive and I felt like I wasn't being as true to the real car. So that's the build, a pretty accurate and faithful representation of my real Mark III as it stands now and partially as it will stand in the near future. Let's talk about the livery. I had 2 main goals when designing this livery. One, I wanted it to have a simple and retro style. I love minimalist designs and the whole Outrun synthwave aesthetic and wanted that to show in the livery. Next, I wanted the car to look like a Forza Edition car. These usually have some gold elements, as well as being much more visually loud than their non-FE counterparts. They stand out. My car is black, so I wanted black for a base to start with. And then I started to look into some more old school racing liveries and came across one that I really fell in love with. And funny enough, it's on a Mark III Supra. It's already retro and minimalist, it just needed the Forza Edition flair. So instead of going with the red and orange TRD color palette, I decided to make each stripe gold, but fade them to still give the design some depth and detail. The stripes start at the back of the car perfectly in line with the 3 stripes of the car's brake lights. Then they run across the side of the vehicle, framing the rear wheel arch. Towards the front, they cut through the wheel well, and while the top 2 stripes disappear into the bumper, the bottom stripe continues around the whole front end, connecting with the other side, and forming a smooth gold front lip design. Next, it was time to design the 3 stripes shooting up from the front wheel well. Since the reference design doesn't show the top of the car, I had some freedom on what to do here. Originally, I planned on keeping things symmetrical, with lines running up both the left and right wheel arches and then continuing straight up the hood, ending at the windshield. But when I had almost finished one side, I realized the asymmetry formed a cool and unique look and acted as a great way to immediately identify the car in the selection window, as well as placing the car's number. I decided not to fade these stripes to allow for some strong gold to come through. Now for the text. Again, I wanted to keep things simple and retro, so we went with this blocky scanline HokiHoshi lettering, placed in line above the gold stripes. The font is also styled like the Supra badge on the back of the car. I loved the original placement of the Olympus text on the reference design, but it just felt cleaner and more in place when tucked between the car's trim line and the gold stripes. It also creates a sort of hidden effect where in some lighting the text is almost invisible, but it shows up super bright in direct light, making it into sort of an Easter egg in plain sight that you might not notice right away. Now let's touch on some smaller details. When you pop up the headlights, there's a hidden flare of gold surrounding the headlight cover. Just a sneaky detail. You gotta respect the pop-ups. You'll also notice the gold brake calipers, again, just to add some gaudy Forza Edition flair. And then, on the rear pillar, you'll also see a funny shape, and it's a track layout. You may recognize this as the Horizon 4 HokiHoshi official test track. I loved adding this to the car, as viewers that have been around for a long time will know that this track has played a huge role in my Horizon 4 content. And I'm glad to be able to add some history or Hoki lore to the car. There's also a QR code on the top of the car, which I'm not going to show in detail because I want that to be a nice surprise for owners of the car. So if you do end up being lucky enough to grab one, scan that QR code. I promise it's not a rickroll. And then finally, on the back of the car, above the Toyota Supra badging, is the edition number. Being the test version that I'm going to be keeping, this car is 0 out of 100. Let's talk about how you can get your hands on one of these cars. There are only going to be 100 of these made ever. Well, okay, 101 if you include car number 0 here. Each and every car will have its own number, and of course there will only be one of each number in existence. So let's talk about how I will distribute these cars. Today, the day of this video's release, New Year's Eve 2021, I will be going live on Twitch to give away the first 10 cars, numbers 1 through 10. These cars are going to be given away through the auction house. And the reason we're doing that is because I want to make sure these numbers go to viewers. Then, every week after this video's release, for 9 more weeks, I'm going to give away another 10 cars. 1 hand-selected number through the auction house, and 9 through the gift drop system. These will always be given away on Fridays, and I'll give away the hand-selected number while live on stream, so you can jump in with everyone to try and snag it. Number 100 will be given away through the auction house on stream, and after that, it's all over. Only 100 of these cars will exist forever. Now, because most of these will be given away through gift drops, that means people who don't know about me may end up with these cars, and they might just immediately swap the paint or keep it in their garage forever never knowing what they have, and that's fine. I've implemented the QR code partially as a way to combat this, because if someone notices and scans the code, well, they'll figure out what they have. But ultimately, I believe a good portion of these cars may just be lost to time, further increasing the rarity of those that do still exist. So if you do find one, please, again, remember to scan that QR code and let me know if you find one. Best of luck, everyone. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on my stream to try and grab your very own Hoki Edition Supra.